Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day and had a wonderful E3. At the time of this recording, E3 has just wrapped up with the award show, putting an end to yet another, I think, pretty good E3. And what made this E3 even more pretty good? The Roguelikes and Roguelites. As per usual, E3 carried with it a handful of them for us to dig into, and while it wasn't very much, again as usual, there are some pretty good ones, and so, in this video, I'll catalog my top picks from the Roguelikes and Roguelites shown at E3. But really quickly, a disclaimer. I unfortunately did not get to watch a good number of the presentations. I was working during most of the live streams, and so I only got to see some of them, and I wanted to get this video out while E3 was still in people's minds, so I haven't been able to watch all the recordings yet. That being said, thankfully plenty of very helpful internet people have listed all of the games in the presentation, so I primarily use that to build my list. That being said, since I didn't watch every presentation, I'm super sorry if I missed out on a certain roguelite or roguelite and didn't get to include it in this list. This is by no means a certain final list of the definite best roguelites and roguelites presented at E3, it's just the ones that I saw and stuck out the most to me. Because of that, this list is going to be in no particular order. Each trailer had a different level of revealing of their games, and I'm not able to spend a ton of time analyzing each one, so I don't think it's fair for me to tier them amongst each other, so all these games are in no particular order. Also, be sure to comment any exciting roguelites or roguelites that I may have missed or didn't throw in on this list. Now, let's get into the games. First up, Endless Dungeons, a very fitting name for a roguelite, I might add. Endless Dungeons, the newest addition to the Endless universe, is a tactical tower defense roguelite that has you, a crashed crew stranded on a desolate space station, working with your squad to fight off the hordes of monsters approaching your precious crystal. I am not at all familiar with the Endless series, so I don't really know a lot of the story, but it still looks awesome. You battle with your squad of 3 using a variety of different skills and abilities in a strategic manner, working tactically together to best fight off the monsters that approach you as you move your crystal along generated paths. In the event that it does happen, death, being permadeath, results in you respawning back to where you first started, adding fun stakes to the game. This game really interested me with its gameplay direction. In it, it seems like you have more control over your squad than most action RPG games, but there's not as much emphasis on your own actions, like aiming and looting, as is the case in most action roguelites. It sort of sits in the middle as this cool blend of tower defense strategy and action roguelite, something that hasn't been done yet as far as I know. So definitely be sure to look more into this one, and await its release sometime in the future, as it's still to be determined. Next up is Loot River. This was a super cool looking game, as it's a very interesting, like, Tetris roguelite mashup. Let me explain. In the game, you scour through procedurally generated dungeons, defeating the enemies in your path and progressing forward. Seems pretty standard, right? Well, the catch about the game is that you progress through it through the use of blocks of land. Blocks that are no ordinary blocks. They're Tetris blocks, basically. So, you move through the areas by moving the platforms and puzzles, along with defeating the enemies in your wake. This was just such a cool yet simple idea, one that I would never have thought of myself but makes so much sense when I hear it. Combine puzzle and roguelite, and do it in a fun and engaging way, as you have to focus on both the platforms and your own combat. Speaking of which, the combat is also super fun and interesting. You have a dodge and a dash, and plenty of choices for a main weapon. You can also upgrade stats and collect items and loot to use in the dungeons. And you can use the platforms as a combat advantage, isolating enemies to kill or breaking away from enemies to heal. All in all, this game has such a cool idea behind it, as it's a great mashup of the puzzle and roguelite genres, so keep tabs on it when it releases at a to-be-determined date. Next, Despot's Game. In Despot's Game, you control some puny humans to do your bidding, in this case to defeat the many wacky enemies or other players presented in the procedurally generated dungeons. The game is a roguelite auto-battler, which means that you control groups of your humans who perform auto-combat and progress through a series of tactical challenges and tons of generated dungeons, upgrading and arming your humans with all kinds of interesting weapons and mutations as you progress. This was another roguelite that caught my interest sheerly because of its interesting playstyle, a mix of auto-battler and action roguelite. I love to see the malleability of the roguelite genre put to the test, with these kinds of fun mashing of the genre with other genres to create truly unique experiences. And as a huge plus, this game already has a demo for you to try out, so go check it out. I myself haven't played it yet, as I just now know that it exists, but I'll definitely be giving this game a try sometime in the future, and we can expect a full release of this game at some point in 2021. Finally, we have Wizard with a Gun. Now, I know I said I wouldn't list these games in any particular order, but this is an exception, because I'm kinda debating whether or not this game counts as a roguelike or roguelite. I know that sounds dumb, it just should be or shouldn't be, but here's the problem. It has an aspect of a roguelite, procedurally generated dungeons, but the central gameplay is more oriented to sandbox survival. So this could fall under the Rogue X category, but I don't really know if that counts as a roguelite of sorts at that point, since I'd never heard of that term before researching this game, so just a heads up that this game isn't really the most by-the-books roguelite. Anyway, I'll stop wasting time here and get to the game. So, Wizard with a Gun. Just from the name alone, I was already very interested in the game. I mean, come on, wizards and guns? All jokes aside though, this game is definitely a very fun and unique experience. In the game, you play as a wizard with a gun, exploring the unknown procedurally generated biomes around you, finding the many ancient and mysterious creatures on your way with an isometric camera. The game actually seems to closely resemble Don't Starve in a way, so if you're familiar with that game, you might very well enjoy this. But even if you don't know what Don't Starve is, Wizard with a Gun is still a great game to try out. It looks like it has tons of crafting, tons of areas to explore, and tons of things to do, alone and in online multiplayer, along with the unique attribute of infusing your guns with magic powers, leading to lots of different weapon and item builds to try out. While its roguelite status is debatable, it still seems like a great game to keep track of as it's developed, and maybe purchase when it releases in 2022. And that wraps up all the games. I'm super excited to play these games when they release, and I'm very happy that while it wasn't much, Roguelikes and Roguelites did get their few moments of fame in E3, and I'm always delighted to see the genre get more attention. Hopefully I didn't miss any games when picking games to make this video on, but again, if there's a roguelike or roguelite that you saw at E3 that you would add to this list, be sure to comment them down below. Alas, no AAA roguelite reveal at E3. Maybe next time. Maybe next time.